fact that they have made goals when in fact they have not made goals, which in my mind is a lie, is a falsehood. And if the question is, how do we sanction those companies, and yet I think I'm hearing sort of a circular argument, well, we sanction them after the fact. Well, when does the after the fact ever happen? And I think that's the question I'm having a hard time getting my hands around. If in fact a company, we have a list of companies that have historically not met those goals, when do we say that they can no longer participate in the program, if at all? If I'm understanding the issue.
They get due process. There is some discretion on the part of the OBO director, but sanctions can go up to debarment, which would be a prohibition of bidding on any city work for a period up to 5 years. And council would be presented with that and would vote on that.
All right, thank you. Do we have a list of companies that would be barred in this instance? No. Thank you.
We have debarred companies in the past, but I don't know how long it's been.
Do we know if there are any in line?
The goal is to never debar a company, because we have a process in place to intervene earlier on.
Well, I guess for the public's perception that if we have companies that aren't meeting these goals and they're strategically misleading people about not making those goals, we ought not to want to reward them with future contracts where they probably intend not to meet those goals. So,
and formal due process is laid out in the Municipal Code Ordinance, Section 15-86. There's hearings and other performance notice and so forth. It lays out what the sanctions are.
thank you, ma'am. I appreciate your input.
Mayor Pro Tem Gonzalez.
Thank you. Mayor, I don't have the whole background on this. I do have some information. I think to Councilman Bradford's point, OBO was looking at this prior to this, and they were looking at sanctioning before it got to this point. It seems that the company did not respond to several inquiries by OBO, and this is the second time that they've gotten unsatisfactory. So OBO was reaching out prior to this, and they were only responsive or responded after their OBO's letters were received. So as you stated, a lot of the work had already been complete, and so I don't know what happens at this point going forward in terms of this company doing work in the future, but I believe there should be some intervention in light that they were being unresponsive, but obviously there has to be due process, and maybe I'm sure OBO's going to be working on it, but they were being proactive during the process.
Thank you. Councilmember Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. I think echoing my colleagues, the point that you just made, Mayor Pro Tem, you said this is the second time, and I think what the body is stating, after the first time, when do we take action, Mayor? I think that's just the bottom line question. It's a rhetorical question, but the question is, when do we take action? If this is the second time, we believe that after the first time, so I guess OBO does their job, and they need to bring it in front of council so we can vote. So that's my point.
Any company can have an unsatisfactory rating one time. It would take a second unsatisfactory rating to establish a pattern, which would fall under our ordinance, and or a demonstrated unwillingness to communicate and coordinate with OBO. I would trust that after both a first unsatisfactory rating and then with OBO saying that this company failed to respond as they tried to intervene and bring them on track, that you would fully expect to either have an administrative sanction or a formal debarment brought before council. But they have due process in the ordinance, and that would have to happen before it came to you. However, they have satisfactorily completed the work assigned, and as
Mayor, due process also dictates that this council not reach a decision about whether or not they have violated the ordinance.
I'm trying to get there. They completed the work assigned in a satisfactory manner. They simply did not meet the MWBE standards, and they also came in 18% under budget.
I mean, that's great, and, you know, for the city, saving money, I understand that, but, we can't say that, we can't use that as a point, because maybe with a small woman minority-owned firm, they probably could have come under budget with that 18% as well. So I don't think that could be I'm in agreement that yes, that's a good thing, but we can't state, because we don't know, because they didn't use that small minority women-owned business. So we can't assume that they would have gone over budget, or would not have come in under budget by 18%.
Councilmember, I agree. The point being that this is about the completion of work performed with the understanding that they have now, with 2 contracts, established a pattern and now fall under our sanctions ordinance. Councilmember Stardy.
Yes, that's what I was getting at. Is there, my concern always is are we dependent on a department to bring something forward, or is there a trigger in place that brings it to the attention of council, or do we have to follow up and follow back on some of these things and monitor to ensure, or we have to wait till we hear from the public and be reactive? That's all. That's what my concern is, that there's a trigger that brings it back to this body rather than a due diligence or a process that is under review and subject to the departments.
Yeah,
If I could, Mayor,
Councilmember Green.
would yield. There is a process. It's based on the discretion of the director.
But that's my concern.
Exactly. But that's what the policy prescribes.
And the reason that we provide to every member of council, every time you get a contract, whether they have completed the satisfactory rating, gives you eyes on and shows that the director is tracking each one of these contracts. And while they must have due process under the contract, it puts everybody on alert, but it is ultimately the director's responsibility. That's what she's paid for, to administer this program.
Once again, I appreciate that, but I'm just concerned that there's a perception of fairness, and that if there's something that's not right, that it should be subject to coming back to this council without it being subject to a director's opinion, if that's what it sounded like what I heard. Because my concern is that sometimes these directors outlast us and outlive us, and that perceived power shifts with that ability to be subjective, if I explain myself well enough.
Yes, ma'am, but my understanding is, again, 2 unsatisfactory, it's an audit, I mean, she has no discretion.
Okay.
And the other is
If
that
my colleagues are comfortable with that, that's my concern. Is that I think that, you know, one of the things that I've come on council for is to make sure that it's not always just subject to the directors running the world. It's that this council and this body runs, you know, is overseeing, and the elected officials are the ones running the show.
Yes, ma'am, and again, I assure you that Councilmember Grant is the committee chair, he watches all of these, but the other opportunity for intervention is that when when a contract is originally let, and if any council member, I mean, that is also the appropriate time to raise a concern as a council member to say, hey, they got an unsatisfactory rating. That's why we give that information to you. They got an unsatisfactory rating the last time. They're on notice, we're watching them, or for whatever reason, we don't want to give them the low bid. Councilmember Green?
Thank you, Mayor. And just with regard, I think, to Councilmember Bradford's original question, the challenge we've had essentially is, according to the policy, it is at the discretion of the director. It's not an automatic after 2 review. According to the current policy, I haven't seen a revision that puts in the trigger. So my reading of the policy is that it's up to the discretion. Additionally, with regard to the process, it requires a hearing with regard to due process once they want to move forward with that. My understanding is that the committee charged to do that has not been seated, or that it has to be seated.
Has to be seen.
And it has not been seated in the past, therefore there has not been an opportunity for anyone to review it. Therefore, we have not had an opportunity or a recommendation to the bar for this council because the process is not in place. And so I appreciate OBO working with me through this to now establish a process that would be in place, that this council would have the opportunity to review after a recommendation is made by that committee and to deal with this. But as I asked the question last week, you know, what happens next? Now we understand what needs to happen next. But before we can move forward with this happening next, we first need to get a committee so that we can refer this to. Thank you.
Councilmember, I hate to contradict you, but the committee would be formed as is appropriate. If we're not going to have a environment process, we wouldn't have a committee that we're not sending work to. If anybody has told you that we can't take action because there's not a committee in place, they are in fact incorrect. The committee would be formed as needed to hear the
My understanding, Mayor,
investigation.
it's a standing committee that it's not formed upon each incident of a recommendation, that it is a board, and once these issues arise, it would go flow to them.
Mr. Feldman?
Mayor, I don't know the answer to the question, except that obviously, if you have a vendor that a recommendation would be made on, you can create a board at that point in time.
Again, Councilmember Green, if you have, if anyone has told you that they can't take action because there's not a committee formed, they are incorrect, and I'd like to know who told you that. You can tell me offline.
Yes, ma'am. I'm just following the policy and the ordinance as it's written. Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.